Hello, Buckeye Nation. There's really no better word to describe that game against Northwestern than this tweet from Chris. Fugly. That game was fugly, y'all. Ohio State battled some crazy awful weather and looked all out of sorts on Saturday. They got the win, but I'm ready to move on. On the bright side of things, we have another game coming up this weekend. Let's talk about that and more after the intro. Welcome to Buckeye Football Fangirl. If this is your first time here, my name is Lisa and I'm the gal behind this channel. I'm happy you're here. Thank you to everyone who watches these videos. You are fabulous and I truly love chatting about the Buckeyes with each and every one of you every single week. If this is your first time, go ahead, drop me a comment below to say hey. I honestly want nothing more than to put that Northwestern game behind us and move on to what's next. However, let's take just 2 minutes to talk about what happened on Saturday. What a weird, fugly game. After the game clock hit 0, I kept trying to imagine myself telling someone who didn't watch the game why the final score was 21-7. I'd imagine it would look something like this. So what happened in that game on Saturday? Weren't the Buckeyes expected to blow Northwestern out? Oh, you know, the weather. Oh, really? You know, it was really windy and rainy. Okay. And well, they pushed our O-line around, so we couldn't get the run game going. That doesn't sound good. Yeah, and Henderson was out, and Mayan just didn't look like himself. Dang. Did they try running with Hayden? Nah, just Mayan. And you know what was really crazy? They kept calling pass plays, even though nobody could catch them in the rain. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. made a couple good catches, but that was about it. Yeah, that was really nuts. CJ only completed 10 of 26 passes the entire game. Yikes, that's not normal. Oh, and get this, CJ actually ran the ball. That was amazing. And that honestly was the highlight of the game. Seeing CJ step up and run it when they needed it. Here's a fun fact that Dave tweeted. CJ Stroud entered this game with -24 rushing yards over the last 2 seasons combined. Today, he has 79. It was great seeing CJ step up and run. It's something many of us Buckeye fans have been wanting to see all season long. But that game, I suppose there must be one of those types of games every season. Let's just hope that that was it and the Buckeyes got all of that sloppy play out of their system. Now, I saw a lot of people on Twitter spouting off about how TTUN is going to come into the shoe and push Ohio State around in November. And I just want to say, I don't subscribe to that at all. Point blank, Ohio State wasn't playing with the hunger, energy, or focus that we've seen from them during other games this season. As crazy OSU fan 60 tweeted, that weather was just nasty and hard to get up for a 1-7 team. I get it. And I have no doubt they will play hungry come November 26th. Shout out to Buckeye Commander Joshua, Mikey Nutt's grandfather, and all the other Ohio State fans who braved that weather and were at that game. As Mikey tweeted to me, my grandfather went to the game and he was actually concerned about trying to leave. He said the wind was so bad, he thought that there was a tornado nearby and was amazed that they kept playing during some of the points of the game with how bad it got. That wind sounds absolutely nuts. And mad props for all who went there and stuck it out to cheer on the Buckeyes. Okay, can we move on now? Let's talk about the game that we have coming up this weekend versus the Indiana Hoosiers. So far this year, Indiana is 3-6 for the year, and they just got smacked around by Penn State this past weekend. They've lost games to Cincinnati, Nebraska, TTUN, Maryland, Rutgers, and most recently Penn State. Ohio State and Indiana have played a total of 94 times, winning 77, tying 5, and losing 12 times. Indiana is led by head coach Tom Allen. He's currently in his 6th year as their head coach, originally hired in 2016 to serve as defensive coordinator for head coach at the time, Kevin Wilson. Then, in December of 2016, he was named head coach when Kevin Wilson suddenly resigned. He's born and raised in Indiana, and so this job is personal to him in more ways than one. He's well versed on the defensive side of the football, and so it would make sense that Indiana's defense has usually been the strength of the team since he's been there. However, this year, neither the defense or the offense has been a strength for Indiana. Indiana is currently ranked 104th in total defense, compared to Ohio State, who's currently 6th, and 112th in total offense, compared to Ohio State, who is currently 14th. You're more than likely familiar with his motto, LEO, but for anyone who's not, it stands for love each other. I dig it, and I think we all need to do that a whole lot more. Coach Allen describes himself as high-strung, excitable, and naturally caffeinated. Not surprisingly, he is a fiery, emotional coach, known for actually getting beat up while celebrating with his players, think cuts on his face, even knocked out front teeth. Allen and his coaching staff had to go to the transfer portal to fill quite a few key positions this year. When it comes to quarterback, Indiana has been dealing with quite the conundrum. Starting quarterback Connor Bazelak, who transferred in from Missouri this year, has been on the struggle bus all season. He hasn't been incredibly accurate, and to be fair, his offensive line has offered him no help. He was unavailable this past weekend in their loss to Penn State, and according to Coach Allen, it was because he was dinged up. However, some have been wondering if he was actually pulled from the starting job due to his underperformance. In the Penn State game, Indiana led with backup quarterback Jack Tuttle, who has actually already announced his intention to enter the transfer portal at the end of the season. Some of you may be familiar with Jack Tuttle, as he was the one who led Ryan Day to discovering one of our favorite wide receivers to wear scarlet and gray, Chris Olave. Tuttle and Olave played football together in high school, and Olave was the one running routes when Day went to evaluate Tuttle as a potential quarterback. And I think you can guess how the rest of the story goes. Back to talking about Tuttle though. To make things worse for Indiana, he was then injured during that game against Penn State last weekend and was then seen on the sidelines during the second half of the game with his arm in a sling. Freshman quarterback Brendan Sorsby entered the game in place of Tuttle, and after an interception was replaced by sophomore quarterback Dexter Williams II. So who the heck knows who we will actually see in this game on Saturday? If it's Bazelak, we will see a one-dimensional quarterback who will likely stay in the pocket, get sacked a bunch of times, and likely throw at least one interception, as he's hovering around a 55% completion rate with 9 interceptions for this season. If it's Tuttle, he has a career completion percentage of 57%, and while he seems to be slightly more able to scramble if needed, he's really not a huge threat on his feet. If you remember, we saw Tuttle briefly in the game against Indiana last year. That was before he unfortunately left the game due to an injury. Double unfortunately, there's many who fear that injury Tuttle suffered on Saturday was a season-ending injury, although Allen has not disclosed more information on it yet. If we see Sorsby, as a true freshman, he has the least amount of game experience, and he also missed out on the entire spring practice. He floundered when thrust into the game last weekend, which was why he was pulled for Dexter Williams II. If we see Williams, he was actually able to give the Hoosiers a bit of a spark, though his performance also was not great. Williams is the most mobile quarterback option, so that's something to watch for if we see him on the field. However, he also threw 2 interceptions against Penn State this past weekend. This is what I've heard and found in my research this week, but what have you heard? Have you heard any updates that I haven't? Drop me a comment below if you have any news or any thoughts about who we might see as quarterback this weekend. The chaos this season unfortunately hasn't been contained to the quarterback room. A couple weeks ago, Indiana fans also learned that the leading wide receiver, Cam Camper, who transferred in from Trinity Valley Community College, would be out for the rest of the season due to a torn ACL. Emery Simmons has had to step up as the second most productive wide receiver, but only has 335 yards so far for this season. For comparison, Cade Stover has the 4th most yards on Ohio State's team, and he only has 14 fewer yards. Simmons is a transfer from UNC, and it's interesting because he originally committed to Indiana in 2018 before then flipping his commitment to UNC to stay closer to his hometown. Running back Shaun Shivers leads Indiana in rushing yards with 399 yards. Shivers is a transfer from Auburn, where he saw his play time decreasing year after year until he decided to take his talents to a place where he hopes to use it as a springboard to get him into the NFL. Running back Josh Henderson trails Shivers in yards. However, he has the highest yards per carry average, and there are some Indiana fans who have been clamoring for him to get more playing time. Henderson, wait for it, is also a transfer. He transferred this year from UNC as well because he was looking to play a bigger role, which he's gotten at Indiana. It will be interesting to see if they do a running back rotation like they have done in some of the games, or if they stick with either Shivers or Henderson during the game this Saturday. Before moving over to the defensive side of the ball, I briefly mentioned earlier that Indiana's offensive line has been no help to their quarterbacks. When I say that, I mean they have been absolutely atrocious this year. So far, they've allowed 29 sacks by opposing teams. That's a lot of sacks. Some have gone so far as to call them the weakest link on the team this year, and it would help to explain some of the issues that they've been having on offense and not being able to win their games. Switching over to defense now, the general consensus from what I found online is that Indiana's defense has actually taken a step backwards this year, and the veteran players are not playing up to everyone's expectations. Let's talk about some of the producers on the team. Linebacker Aaron Casey leads the team with 69 total tackles. Casey is not a transfer. He's been rated as the 5th best linebacker and the best pass rushing linebacker in the Big Ten by PFF. He also has 1.5 sacks and has caused 2 forced fumbles. Another name to note on defense is true freshman linebacker Dasan McCullough, which should be a familiar name to us all. McCullough was a verbal commit to Ohio State before he flipped his commitment to Indiana due to family connections, aka his dad being a coach there. That is, his dad was a coach there before he was offered a spot at Notre Dame, which he took. McCullough has been disruptive so far and leads the team with 4 sacks. When it comes to interceptions, defensive back Tywan Mullen leads the team with 2. While he has that stat to claim, a lot are saying his play has regressed this year compared to last year, and that he has been inconsistent in games. All this to say that last weekend, Penn State offense scored 45 points on this defense. Now, I know. The transitive property doesn't work, but I can't help but feel that we shouldn't be too worried heading into the game this weekend. As long as there are no more hurricane force winds and rain blowing into Columbus this weekend, I think Ohio State's offense should be able to outmaneuver what sounds like an underperforming defense. And no matter who we see at quarterback, I'm kind of looking forward to seeing this Buckeye defense tear through their offensive line and wreak some havoc in the backfield. Okay, I lied. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. If we do see Williams, who is the most mobile quarterback on the roster, he may be the one who can give the Ohio State D the best run for their money. However, he's also shown that he is prone to throwing interceptions, so there's the possibility that RD will be feasting not just on the ground, but in the air as well this weekend. How are you feeling about this Indiana game? I would honestly completely understand anyone who's feeling nervous after seeing what we saw last weekend. I mean, we weren't supposed to have to sweat that game against Northwestern. And then look at what happened. It's enough to cause nerves just due to that experience. Drop me a comment below and let me know if you're feeling nervous or if you're feeling confident about the game against Indiana this weekend. I love reading through your comments and chatting with you guys about your thoughts. And that just triggered a games left reminder in my mind. I can hardly believe it, but this season is flying by so quickly, and we now only have 3 regular season games left to watch our beloved Buckeyes play. So let's enjoy it, come what may. All right, that's all I've got for you this week. I'll see you on the other side of the game. OH.